It is December, and in December I like to look back at the books that I've DNF'd over the year, because in January I like to try and finish some DNF books if I possibly can. So we're looking at all of my DNF'd books. I guess if you have better storygraph, you're able to look by year at the books you DNF'd. Maybe, I don't know. I would assume so, but I'm only looking at the books that I DNF'd this year. I also try to write down the books that I've DNF'd on my recently acquired book spreadsheet, which is the spreadsheet of books coming into the house that I keep every year. And I try to write down all the books that I bring into the house, but I also try to write down all the books that I've read. So once a book is on this spreadsheet, then I cross it off, I color it in when I've read that book, and I put the date of when I've read it, or if there's any other information like I DNF'd it. So I was going back through, and I think this is all the books. So before we talk about the books that I DNF'd in 2024, let's just talk about a couple of books that I have still on my DNF shelf. So if I DNF a book for now, first of all, DNF means did not finish. So it's a book that you start, that you get a certain amount of the way through, however much you feel through, and you decide that you want to stop reading it. Now, there are DNFs for now, so a book that you are maybe just not feeling, but you want to come back to eventually. And there's DNFs forever, which are books that you are counting as off of your TBR. You're not going to read them. You know, never say never, but pretty probably sure you're not going to read them. So I've done a video like this for a few years now, and some of the books that I still have on my DNF shelf from those years are The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. This is a workbook, spirituality, and productivity book that is a little too woo-woo for me, a little too hokey for me. It's all about like getting in touch with your productivity, your artist's way, and your creativity, but it's a lot of worksheets and working that you have to do, going on artist dates with yourself and things like that. All that sounds great, but it's not necessarily something that I'm actually going to do. So I have held on to this even though I DNF'd it early in my booktube career, because it is the kind of thing that one day I might want to return to. I did try the morning pages from this activity book, which are to write down your initial thoughts in the morning, and I did that for 30 days and I made a video of it. So I will leave that video listed down below. The next book, actually probably this one's next. The next book is Wisteria Cottage by Robert M. Coates. This is a horror from the 1940s, 30s or 40s, and I have all told got about halfway through this one. It's just very slow, and you're very much in the mind of a disturbed person, possibly a murderer. So it's a little bit hard to read, but I love the cover, and I do like the atmosphere in this book, so it's always stayed in my mind as a book that I might come back to. And then finally, from previous years, I have The No. 2 Feline Detective Agency by Mandy Morton. This is like a cozy mystery, a cat cozy mystery, which I do have a cat cozy mystery project, which I haven't worked on in a while, that I DNF'd because it is a cat cozy mystery from the perspective of cats. Like, it's a cat life, a cat town, a cat detective, a cat place. I don't know if there's humans in it. I didn't get really far enough to be able to deduce that. I only got about 1/10 of the way through. But this one I've kept partly because it seems interesting, partly because I purchased this book used, but I did purchase it, and partly because since I'm doing that cat cozy mystery reading vlog series, you just never know when I might want to come back to this one. Moving on to 2024, but along the same lines, another cat cozy mystery that I DNF'd this year is The Cosmic Clues by Manjari Prabhu. Manjari Prabhu does a lot of different mystery series. I got a little more than halfway through this one, and this one is about an astrologist who is also a detective, and it's all about astrology and how astrology and detection can go together. There were some aspects of this that I really, really liked, but it's very long and I just found it to be extremely tedious. And it's not really a cat cozy mystery. There is a cat in it, but the cat isn't a main part of the mystery. So I tried to read this a couple of times and I got, you know, a good chunk of the way through. One of the reasons that I'm not going to DNF this forever necessarily, or at least I'm going to keep it on my DNF shelf a little bit longer, is because it's a cat cozy mystery, sort of, or adjacent to cat cozy mysteries. But another reason is because I wasn't hating this, I was just really bored reading it. The next book that we're going to talk about that I DNF'd in 2024 is Mycroft Holmes by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Anna Waterhouse. So this is a mystery featuring Mycroft Holmes, who is the brother of Sherlock Holmes, written by famous ex-basketball player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. How cool does that sound, right? Like, how good does that sound? But I only got about a tenth of the way through this one too, and it was tedious to read. And I feel really bad about it. This is another one that I bought used online because it just sounded so cool. And I really like the idea of reading mysteries that are Sherlock Holmes reimaginings or retellings or have to do with the Sherlock Holmes universe but aren't really Sherlock Holmes. I say that I like that idea because I've never successfully actually read one. And I don't think that this is going to be the one for me. I haven't thought about this book again really since DNFing it. So I think this is going to be a DNF forever, and we're going to pass this one along to a little free library. Next is another book that I tried to read several times, several years apart, and another book that I got a really good chunk of the way through. So I did make it almost half of the way through Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis Benn. I picked this one up in a little free library near my house quite a few years ago, and I was really excited to read it because I'd heard good things about Nicole Dennis Benn's writing, and also because this takes place in Jamaica, and also because it is queer. So this is about two sisters and their mom living on Jamaica, the different trials and tribulations of their life. The older sister is working at a hotel and trying to get ahead in the hotel business, but she's not doing it necessarily by the best means because she is sleeping with the manager of the hotel, and she is maybe possibly running a sex ring out of the hotel as well. But in her personal life, the older daughter is in love with an older woman, and she really just wants to be able to escape the life that she has now to be with this older woman, but she's not able to do that. And then the younger daughter is teased at school for being very dark-skinned. So she is trying to work through that, and she is unfortunately taking a path of trying to lighten her skin by any means possible. So it was a really hard read. It was really serious and upsetting and unsettling in some respects, not like in a horror way, but just in a unfortunate circumstances way, I guess. And I really was having a tough time getting through it. It's told a lot in dialect, which I liked, but which was hard to read. So the second time that I tried to read it, I did try also reading it on audio, and I still just couldn't get through it. So unfortunately, I think this is also a DNF forever and will be leaving my DNF shelf. Another book that I was super anticipating is The Street by Ann Petrie. This is a modern classic novel set in New York about a young mother and her young child and how they're getting by in New York, her as a single parent and him as a young black child. So I didn't get very far into this one either. No, I got pretty far actually. I tried this one on audio as well, and I got pretty far. I got about a quarter of the way through. And in that quarter, it talks about them looking for housing and them trying to get by in the harsh realities of New York at the time, obviously being minorities and being black people at that time and the things that they have to deal with, and being single mom, being a young woman at that time. I was really intrigued by this one just because it is a Black American story, which I really like to read. It's set in New York, which I really like. But one of the main perspectives of this is a predatory man who, I don't know in this story if he ends up preying on this young woman, but we definitely get a lot of his perspectives of what he would do to her, how he would do it, his thoughts and feelings on it. And it was just really, really hard to read, really upsetting and really disturbing and gross. And I just really didn't like to be in the mind of this predator. So I decided to DNF this one. And I think even though it hurts me because this is a modern classic and it should be like right up my alley, I think unfortunately I'm going to DNF this one forever as well, and hopefully pass it on to someone who would get more out of it than I did. Finally, we have While Justice Sleeps by Tracy Abrams. So I did read only about 1/10 of this one as well. I got to chapter 6, and this is a political thriller. I was interested because it's Tracy Abrams, who is a politician, so I was interested in the idea of reading a fiction book based on knowledge that an actual politician, an actual one-time judge and lawyer has, but it was really just not the kind of thriller that I like, just really not the kind of mystery that I like. It was very political. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, but it was very dry, it was very slow, and it read more almost like a domestic thriller, which I also really don't enjoy. So what I think I might do is I might check online to see if Libby or Hoopla has the audio version of this and try reading the audio version of this and see if I enjoy that anymore. So I think I'm going to keep this one on my DNF shelf for now. Maybe this will be one that I give a try again in January when I like to finish reading some of my DNFs. And I think actually I'm going to see if Wisteria Cottage has a audiobook as well, because this would also be a good one to actually try and finish. This is the book out of all these books that I most was enjoying and most wanted to read, but just couldn't get through. So I think I'll try to find an audiobook of Wisteria Cottage and When Justice Sleeps, and I will give them another shot on audio before I think about unhauling. So those were all the DNFs that I had this year, not very many, 3 of which I am unhauling, which is great because I'm doing a Read What You Own challenge, so I will keep these in reserve, and if I decide that I need to pick up a book during my Read What You Own challenge, I can use these as ones to unhaul. And then I am keeping 2 books that I started, well, this one I started earlier, but 2 books that I started this year that I might give another try to. Let me know if you DNF books. Let me know how many books you've DNF'd this year. Are they books that you are definitely unhauling, or are they books that you might come back to? Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!